picture this, right? A man walks up to airport security, and he's wearing a face-covering scarf and, like, bright blue latex gloves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he looks exactly like a terrorist trying to hide in plain sight. But the truth about the improvised explosive device they're about to find in his backpack is far more terrifying than, I mean, any Hollywood spy thriller.
Right, because he wasn't trying to hide from the TSA at all.
Exactly. He was hiding from drones that, well, only he could see.
Yeah, it's a scenario that really tests every single layer of our modern aviation security apparatus. I mean, it forces us to ask, what happens when a severe mental health crisis collides head-on with federal terrorism protocols?
It really does. And we are going to get into all the fascinating, deeply unsettling details of this case. But before we do, I want to ask you, the listener, to take just a half second right now to hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're using.
Yeah, please do.
It's just the absolute best way to make sure you never miss one of our deep dives.
It makes a huge difference for the show.
Okay, so one other quick piece of business. We need to give a strict update on the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI situation, just because we've been getting a flood of questions.
Right. People are definitely asking.
Yeah. So to be absolutely clear, it is not a lawsuit.
Huh.
They are currently in a voluntary quiet period. There is no settlement. The dead man switch has not been activated, and Martin is safe.
Right. And that is all we are going to say on that for now.
Exactly. So, jumping into today's mission, we're doing a full deep dive into the shocking arrest of Kimani Osayande Jones.
Who also goes by the last name Jackson, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
This all took place on Saturday, May 30th, 2026, at Sacramento International Airport, or SMF.
And we've pulled together local news reports from Sacramento and Baltimore, extensive federal court documents, and TSA press releases to get the full picture.
Right. We're going to unpack the explosive device itself, the incredibly bizarre digital footprint left by the suspect, and, you know, the massive multi-agency security response it triggered.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this.
I think the best place to start is the physical checkpoint, right at the moment of discovery. This establishes the baseline threat.
Right.
When law enforcement responds to an airport incident, they don't have the luxury of context. They only have a physical reality right in front of them.
And the physical reality here is incredibly jarring. Let's set the scene. It's around 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. You have a 49-year-old man attempting to board an American Airlines flight heading across the country to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
And right off the bat, his physical appearance is setting off major alarm bells. I mean, he's wearing a scarf that completely covers his face, and he has bright blue latex gloves on his hands.
Which is immediately striking. I mean, in a post-pandemic environment, seeing someone wearing a medical mask or even gloves might not completely stop traffic.
Sure.
But a scarf heavily concealing the face, paired with stark blue latex gloves on a late Saturday night flight. That elevates the baseline suspicion for any train agent on the floor.
Wait, I'm genuinely confused by this detail. If you are actively trying to smuggle a bomb onto a commercial airliner,
Right.
an act that requires the absolute highest level of stealth and evasion, why on earth would you wear a bright blue beacon on your hands and cover your face like a cartoon bank robber?
I know, it sounds ridiculous.
That's just asking to be pulled aside and searched, isn't it?
It completely defies logic if you view it through the lens of traditional espionage or terrorism. What's fascinating here is the psychological juxtaposition.
What do you mean?
Well, you have the covert nature of a smuggled weapon clashing violently with the overt, highly visible nature of his physical disguise.
Ah, right.
It immediately signals to investigators that they aren't dealing with a highly trained, sophisticated operative who knows how to blend into a crowd.
Right, a professional trying to move an explosive through a checkpoint dresses like an everyday business traveler, not someone who wants to remain untouchable.
Exactly. The disguise is practically screaming for attention, even if the weapon is meant to be hidden.
And speaking of the weapon, the real shock hits when the TSA agents actually check his carry-on backpack.
Yeah.
They don't just find a water bottle or, a prohibited pocket knife. They find an absolute arsenal.
The inventory of that bag is chilling.
It really is. We are talking about a knife, scissors, extra loose scissor blades, an aerosol can, zip ties, a butane torch lighter, and the centerpiece of this entire terrifying collection, an M-type improvised explosive device.
And we really need to clarify what M-type actually means in this context, because federal documents specifically described it as a 2.5-inch long brown cylinder with a 1-inch green fuse.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, When authorities use the term M-type, they're generally referring to military simulation explosives, similar design to like an M80 firecracker.
Wow. Okay.
These aren't the sparklers you buy for the 4th of July, right? Historically, M-type devices are packed with a highly energetic flash powder designed to create a massive acoustic boom and significant overpressure in a very small package.
I just have to pause here because look, we have all been there. You accidentally leave an oversized bottle of shampoo in your bag, or maybe you forgot to take your laptop out, and the TSA pulls your bag aside.
Oh yeah, the worst.
You feel that flush of embarrassment, the annoyance of the delay. I cannot even begin to fathom the absolute shock of the agent unzipping a standard backpack and pulling out a literal fused explosive device along with zip ties and a blowtorch.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for checkpoint security. But what takes this from a terrifying weapon possession case to a deeply complex investigation is what they found next.
Right.
The physical weapons were only the first layer.
Right, because they keep digging into this backpack and they discover the digital footprint. Agents found 5 cell phones in his bag. 5.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets incredibly strange. Every single one of those 5 phones had the front-facing camera meticulously covered with painter's tape.
Which is a very specific physical modification. Let's look at the mechanics of why someone does that. Covering the front camera with an opaque material like painter's tape physically blocks the lens aperture. It's a known counter-surveillance tactic.
Oh. Yeah.
It's used to prevent the user's surroundings or their own face from being recorded if the device's camera is remotely hijacked by malware.
But it goes beyond just tape. One of these taped-up phones has a 15-minute timer actively set and ready to start.
Right.
And another phone has a message displayed right on the screen from an unknown number. The text just says, quote, "We will be awaiting your call."
You can imagine the adrenaline spike for the investigators looking at that screen.
Absolutely. I mean, look at these clues. If I'm an investigator and I see burner phones, a 15-minute operational timer, and an incoming text explicitly stating someone is waiting for a signal,
Yeah.
my brain immediately goes to a sleeper cell. If you just look at these clues, it looks like a coordinated plot, right?
It absolutely dictates their response protocol. When law enforcement sees multiple communications devices, combined with operational timers and incoming communications referencing secondary parties, they are forced to immediately expand the threat matrix.
Yeah.
They have to assume, in that chaotic moment, that this is a multi-person conspiracy.
They can't afford to assume he's acting alone.
Precisely. You have a viable explosive, a high-heat butane lighter to ignite it, and a timer.
Yeah.
Even though the timer was digital and on a phone, and the explosive had a physical green fuse, the presence of these tools in close proximity suggests orchestration.
Wow.
The text message implies outside actors who might be waiting for Jones to clear security, or waiting for him to board the plane, or perhaps waiting to initiate a secondary attack elsewhere.
That's terrifying.
It expands the scope of the danger exponentially. They aren't just locking down a single TSA checkpoint anymore.
Right.
They have to consider the entire terminal, the parking structures, and potentially the destination airport in North Carolina as active threat zones.
Which brings us to the actual physical response by the authorities. Because now they have a potential terrorism conspiracy unfolding in real time in the middle of a busy California airport. And Jones's reaction to being caught is a massive behavioral swing. First, when confronted, he claims he didn't even know the items were in his bag.
A standard reflexive denial.
Right. But then he casually tells the officers that he would be fine just discarding them.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, oh, my bad. I didn't know I couldn't bring a bomb. Just throw it in the trash. I have a flight to catch.
Yeah.
But when the officers inform him that, no, you cannot just throw explosive material into an airport garbage can, Jones completely pivots.
He does.
He denies owning the backpack at all, immediately invokes his Miranda rights, and flat out refuses to be interviewed by the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office or the FBI.
Wait, so he goes from, let me use the trash can, to a legally airtight invocation of his Fifth Amendment rights in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
That is a very lucid, self-protective sequence of actions that contrasts sharply with the absurdity of asking to throw a bomb away.
It's wild. So Jones is arrested, transported to the Sacramento County Jail, and the bomb squad takes over. Sacramento County Sheriff's bomb technicians and an FBI special agent bomb tech work together. To handle the M-type device, they use what is called a blast suppression device to safely extract the explosive from the airport.
And we should clarify how a blast suppression device actually works. It's not just a heavy box.
What is it exactly?
These are typically heavy, spherical, or cylindrical containment vessels made of specialized steel alloys or composite materials.
Okay.
They are mechanically designed to do one of two things. Either fully contain the massive overpressure and heat of an explosion, or safely direct that blast energy straight upward.
I see.
The primary goal isn't just stopping the fire, it's stopping the fragmentation. If that device goes off, it turns everything around it into shrapnel. The suppression vessel ensures the terminal doesn't turn into a kill zone.
And this was a necessary precaution because this wasn't a dud. The powder and the fuse were sent off for laboratory testing, and the federal complaint explicitly states that both were determined to be viable and energetic.
Yeah.
It was a real functional bomb.
And we have to look at the physics of the threat here to understand why a 2.5-inch device is treated with the exact same severity as a massive suitcase bomb. To a layperson, an M-type device sounds like a heavy firecracker. But an FBI bomb technician noted in the court documents that if this specific device had detonated in an aircraft flying above 10,000 feet, particularly near a window, the consequences could be catastrophic.
How does a device that small take down a commercial airliner?
It comes down to the mechanics of hull pressurization. At 30,000 feet, the air outside is freezing and far too thin to breathe.
Right.
So commercial aircraft cabins are heavily pressurized to keep the passengers comfortable. This means the pressure inside the cabin is pushing forcefully outward against the hull of the plane.
Okay.
The explosive doesn't need to be large enough to blow the wing off the plane. It only needs to be energetic enough to compromise the integrity of that pressurized hull, like blowing out a small window.
Oh, it's acting like a pin popping a massive balloon.
Exactly. If a window blows out at altitude, you suffer a rapid explosive decompression.
Wow.
The plane's own internal pressure violently rushes out of that small hole, tearing the structure apart, potentially pulling passengers or debris out of the aircraft, and immediately dropping oxygen levels to fatal margins.
That is terrifying.
So the threat level of this small device, when introduced to the specific physics of high-altitude flight, was immense.
That is absolutely terrifying when you break down the mechanics of it. And there was another massive logistical nightmare for the authorities unfolding at the exact same time.
Oh, the checked bag.
Yes. Jones was at the checkpoint with his carry-on, but he had already checked his main luggage, and that luggage was already loaded onto the American Airlines plane, which was currently in the air, en route to Charlotte.
That is the ultimate nightmare scenario. You have a suspect in custody with a viable explosive and 5 burner phones implying a conspiracy, and his secondary bag is currently flying across the country on a plane full of passengers.
Right. They had to track the plane in real time, coordinate with federal authorities on the East Coast, and the moment that flight touched down in Charlotte, the bag was isolated, hand-searched, and examined by specialized canine units.
Wow.
Thankfully, and I mean incredibly thankfully, they found absolutely nothing illegal or concerning in the checked bag. But it forces you to think about how these security nets work. Here's where it gets really interesting.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there's a clear pattern of how the TSA intercepts these threats. Just a few years prior, in March of 2023, there was a major incident at Lehigh Valley International Airport in Pennsylvania.
Oh, right.
A suspect named Mark Muffley checked a suitcase at the Allegiant airline counter. I remember reading the congressional letter about this in the source material. In the Muffley case, the explosive, which was a small device with 2 fuses and a concealed powder mixture, was hidden inside his checked baggage.
Yeah.
And it was caught by TSA officers in the back rooms.
Wait, how did they catch a disguised powder in a closed suitcase?
Through the mechanics of their backroom technology. Checked bags go through massive, automated CT scanners.
Okay.
Unlike older X-rays that just take a flat 2D picture, a CT scanner spins around the bag, creating thousands of 3D cross-sections.
Oh, wow.
The algorithms in these machines are incredibly advanced. They physically measure the mass and density of the objects inside to detect these specific atomic signatures of explosive materials. They also use chemical sniffers to detect explosive trace residue.
Okay, so the TSA essentially uses 2 entirely different physical filters to protect the public.
Exactly.
The back room is this incredibly fine microscopic mesh, scanning atomic density and chemical traces with automated algorithms. But the frontline checkpoint where Kamani Jones was caught is more like a macroscopic sieve.
That's a good way to put it.
It relies entirely on a human agent recognizing the bizarre context of a man wearing blue latex gloves and a scarf in May and having the intuition to pull him aside.
Right.
It proves that no matter how good the backroom technology gets, human vigilance is the ultimate bottleneck.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The technology is the invisible mesh, but the human intuition is the frontline wall.
But this massive federal security response raises a glaring question. If Kamani Jones was a master terrorist coordinating a multi-node attack with burner phones and timers,
Yeah.
why on earth did he practically beg the FBI to look at him just hours before he went to the airport?
Right. This is where it all shifts.
Because the narrative is about to take a really sharp, tragic turn. According to the federal complaint, Jones had a documented history of severe paranoia. In the months leading up to the airport incident, starting back in March of that year, an individual believed to be Jones called the FBI tip line approximately 13 times.
13 distinct calls to the federal government to report threats against himself.
Yes, and he didn't just call in the months prior. He called the FBI tip line on the very day he walked into the airport with the bomb.
Wow.
The nature of these calls is deeply unsettling and clearly indicative of a break with reality. He was reporting that he was being constantly followed to and from a doctor's appointment. He claimed he was being, quote, coerced in sleep to say certain phrases through digital media.
We need to unpack that, because that is a textbook manifestation of severe paranoid ideation.
Yeah.
It is a specific type of delusion where an individual fundamentally believes that their own thoughts, actions, or even their speech are being externally controlled or monitored very frequently by advanced technology or government entities.
It gets even more specific. He also reported hearing sounds coming through his walls and window panes, which he explicitly attributed to drones. He felt he was under constant cyber threat from unseen individuals who could somehow access his personal texts and private information.
Right.
During these desperate calls, he told the FBI he wanted to exercise his Second Amendment rights to defend himself against these perceived threats, though he explicitly denied any intention to harm others.
Okay.
And the FBI actually terminated one of these calls because of its, quote, nonsensical nature.
Which paints a devastating picture. You have a man in the grips of a profound mental health crisis, desperately reaching out to the highest law enforcement agency in the country, begging for help with delusions that feel as real to him as the chair you were sitting in.
So what does this all mean? We have a guy carrying a viable, energetic explosive into a major airport, but he's also calling the FBI for help from imaginary drones.
This raises an important question, and it forces us to completely reevaluate the physical evidence we discussed earlier.
How so?
If you look at the 5 cell phones, the painter's tape meticulously covering the front cameras, the operational timer, and the text message, it initially looks exactly like terrorism tradecraft.
Right.
But when you overlay his documented psychological profile, those exact same mechanical clues take on a completely different meaning.
Wait, the tape on the cameras, he wasn't worried about the FBI hacking his phone.
Exactly. The tape on the cameras perfectly aligns with his documented paranoia about digital surveillance, about the imaginary drones watching him through his windows, and people accessing his digital media while he sleeps.
Oh, wow.
He isn't covering the cameras to hide a coordinated terrorist plot. He is covering them to stop the imaginary surveillance that is tormenting him.
And the 5 different phones?
That isn't a sleeper cell communications network.
Yeah.
It is highly likely just a frantic, disorganized attempt to find one clean line of communication that hasn't been hacked by the people he thinks are following him.
That completely transforms the narrative. We aren't looking at a standard aviation terrorism plot.
No.
We are looking at a highly complex, incredibly dangerous situation where severe, untreated mental illness directly intersects with federal national security protocols.
It is a terrifying collision.
Yeah.
But here's the friction. The intent might be deeply rooted in a psychological delusion, but the explosive device inside his backpack was 100% real.
Yes.
It had real powder, a real fuse, and real physics that could have taken down an airliner. And the legal system is designed to respond to the physical reality of the threat, regardless of the psychological origin.
Right. The TSA doesn't have time to administer a psychiatric evaluation. They just see the bomb.
Exactly.
So legally, where does Jones stand right now? Following the incident, he was charged in the Eastern District of California Federal Court with unlawful possession of explosive material in an airport.
Right.
It is an incredibly serious federal charge. He is currently being held without bail at the Sacramento County Jail on a federal hold. If he is convicted, he faces a maximum statutory penalty of 5 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000.
And of course, the defense will have their opportunity to present the full context of his mental state during the trial process. The law allows for these mitigating factors to be explored.
Exactly. His defense attorney, Megan McLaughlin, released a statement essentially pointing directly to that friction.
What'd she say?
She stated, quote, "There is often more to these cases than the government's allegations, and that the criminal process will reveal Mr. Jones's story as well."
Right.
Which clearly signals to anyone watching that his state of mind, the 13 calls to the FBI, and his history of profound paranoia are going to be absolutely central to how this case is argued in court.
It leaves us with a profound, almost unresolvable tension. You have the immense, rigid, unforgiving security apparatus of modern air travel.
Oh.
An apparatus specifically engineered to treat every single threat with absolute zero-tolerance precision. And crashing into that rigid system is the deeply unpredictable, tragic, and fluid nature of a severe mental health crisis playing out in real time.
It's devastating when you look at it from both sides. You see the necessity of the law, but you also see the tragedy of the individual.
You do. And the final thought I would leave you with to ponder today is about the invisible safety nets in our society.
Okay.
If a person is in such a severe state of distress that they are calling the FBI tip line with nonsensical claims of drones and sleep coercion 13 times,
Yeah.
including on the very morning they successfully construct a viable explosive device and walk into a major international airport, where exactly does the societal net fail? How does a person fall that far without intervention?
It's a great question.
And conversely, when the TSA agent looks past the baggage scanner, recognizes the anomaly of the blue gloves, unzips that backpack, and stops that device from ever reaching 10,000 feet, where does the security net ultimately succeed?
Wow.
It is a razor-thin line between a systemic, catastrophic failure and a frontline human triumph.
A razor-thin line indeed. And that is where we will leave it for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to help support the show, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe so you are always up to date with our latest deep dives. See you next time.